Hi there. Two big pieces of industry news came out last week for House of the Dragon, both related to its performance at the Emmy Awards. First is the head of HBO established for the first time, look, this isn't coming out by spring of 2024. And he phrased it in terms of Emmy cycles, that it's not going to meet the May cutoff date. It'll be after that. Which is great because it means it's not competing against the final season of The Crown. Second, related news is, to the shock of everyone, Succession won't have a fifth season. They decided not to draw it out. They're going quality over quantity. The fourth season, which begins this month, will be the final season. So that means House of the Dragon Season 1 is in the same cycle as the big final season of Succession, and will be competing against it. And with all these other shows that are still near their second to last or final season, like Better Call Saul, a few of these other ones are still eligible, I don't think House of the Dragon will do particularly well at its first Emmy Awards. Not that that's a problem, no one expects it to. It's not like, oh, you lost the final season of Succession, of course we lost. The real question, which is being seen as a litmus test for can this franchise survive, is how well Season 2 does at the Emmy Awards, looking ahead after they've cleared this hurdle of a major Emmy retirement wave. That a lot of shows that were dominating the awards the past few years are ending. Why the heck does any of this matter? It's just awards. Well, I keep reiterating, we know awards don't give that much of a ratings boost anymore. All of the networks still think they matter. And when the guy who gets to decide what gets renewed or canceled thinks something matters, that means it does. So the odds of the later seasons getting extended episode orders or extended to a fifth season to really tell the story right, because we said Season 1 needed 2 or 3 more episodes, all of that hinges on how well it does at the awards. More likely, it's for the franchise as a whole, that if they get some big Emmy wins for this, the bigwigs up there will decide this franchise still has legs, and it will smooth the path for another spin-off like Dunk and Egg, that they're considering having a Dunk and Egg spin-off. They passed on the other ones about young Corlys and Nymeria, that the odds-on favorite for the second thing that might run, not concurrently, but it runs in summer when the other show runs in winter, alternating like that, like what Star Wars and Marvel do. The second show would probably be Dunk and Egg. We'd all be happy with that. So I'm not talking about just the scale of the next year, but the scale of the next 5 years for this as a franchise, and it was considered a dead franchise. We need awards wins. That Golden Globes win really gave them a shot in the arm, because the studio executives think it matters. What I was really surprised about is when I sat down and crunched the numbers, I just went on to Wikipedia and looked who was winning awards since Game of Thrones ended. The thing you have to remember is it's not this gradual stream or staggered, it's their distinct Emmy eras. Looking at the chart here now, that there was the Sopranos era where it was clearing up all the awards in the early 2000s, then the Breaking Bad Mad Men era of the late 2000s, early 2010s, then the Game of Thrones era in the late 2010s, when no one wanted to run anything against Season 7 and 8 because they thought they would clear up and win everything. Since Game of Thrones ended, where it was like, oh, what's going to be the next big show? So the last 3 cycles, the 2020, 2021, and 2022 Emmys is what I looked at. And I went not by who won, but who got the most nominations in the major categories. The 4 main acting ones, plus drama, best writing, and best directing. And when you add all that up, half a dozen shows got over half of all nominations. That they are the things dominating it. And then when I looked at them cross-referenced with all this, well, you've got The Crown, Succession, Better Call Saul, Ozark, Handmaid's Tale. All of these shows are ending, or have ended. And Season 2 onwards will not be competing against these of House of the Dragon. Yes, we're up against the big final season of Succession. I was more worried about And I made previous videos at New Year's going, I'm really worried that season 2 won't do well at the Emmys when it's against the big final fifth season of Succession, which now isn't happening. The ground is cleared for us. So there's half a dozen shows. The only one that isn't ending right now is Apple TV Plus's big awards bait show, The Morning Show, the TV news thing. So that's their big flagship thing for awards level stuff. I know it hasn't been out in 2 years, but it's coming back. That's the last of that era. And think of all these other things that ended recently. Since Game of Thrones ended, because it was 3 years ago in pre-pandemic. When you think of Emmy-level shows, try to think of something else from that circuit. Killing Eve, done. This Is Us, done. We consistently get nominated. The Good Fight, which is that lawyer show spin-off of the other one, that's over. HBO's own Big Little Lies, done. Westworld, done. And even compared to, like, stuff that was in its final season when Game of Thrones Season 8 was out, that were Emmy-level shows, like Homeland and The Americans, those are way in the past now, that rearview mirror, that we are facing a retirement wave. Why do these things happen? This isn't the first time it's happened. Combination of factors, some of it's just the growth and death of things, some of it has to do with the economy, that during a boom era in the economy, they're more likely to take a gamble on new shows. I think more of it has to do with cycles beginning after writer strikes. That, like Breaking Bad, remember, well, that started right before the last writer's strike. Season 2 got affected by it, but everything goes on pause during a writer's strike. The 2008 one, there hadn't been a strike in 20 years, and everything starts up again. Then those shows reach their final season like 7 years later, and then a new set comes up. It's odd because Casey Bloys, the head of HBO, he was talking about this in his interview with Variety that I talked about in my last video, and he said, like, I was a low-ranking guy, I just joined HBO at the time when Sopranos was ending, and publicly we were saying, oh, we're so confident that the next big flagship show will be Boardwalk Empire. Really, it was a total guessing game, and we were panicking. The head executives at the time, I saw them just totally panicking. They didn't have another lead show in place overlapping its run with Sopranos. Like, by Sopranos Season 4, you should have other shows to bridge yourself onto, when they were like, we're all used up, all of our other ideas are out. And part of it's hard to find lightning in a bottle, but still, just how much these guys just hit a wall at the end of an era, and you'd be surprised that it really is this sharp cutoff. Like, actually think of how much people were freaking out when Breaking Bad and Mad Men ended by 2015, and I think that's one of the reasons that critics went easy on Game of Thrones after that, is there wasn't another big Emmy-level show out 2015 to 2019 because of the pre-streaming production slump. The ABC wasn't putting out anything big because their Disney platform was about to launch with Mandalorian and took a few years to make it, rather than starting something new in like 2018. I think that's why it was a bust era that they happened to dominate. And I've seen articles on this. Whenever there's the big finale, they go, this is the last great show. When Lost ended, when Battlestar Galactica ended, Breaking Bad, Mad Men. And then when Game of Thrones was ending, they're going, this is the last big show. And there was 1 or 2 articles pointing out, remember when we freaked out when Breaking Bad ended and all those other shows? That this isn't the end of TV, it's just the end of a big show. And it's really unprofessional of them to, be saying this is the last show ever. What? So for whatever reason, I think it has to do with just the life cycle of starting up again after writer strikes every 10 to 20 years. There are these eras. And these are the shows that totally dominated them, and we want House of the Dragon to succeed at awards because it leads to renewals and other spin-offs. Good news is, while Season 1 is overshadowed by the final season of some of these, after this retirement wave, it'll be like an extinction-level event. What else will there be for us to compete with? So I sat down and figured out basically 2 batches of things. Shows that, along with Morning Show, have been on the Emmys' radar for a couple of years. They're not exactly freshman shows. And the second batch are the freshman shows that did really well the past year or two, though we're not sure if they're, just the novelty of the first season might not wear off. By, like, Succession Season 2, you knew that this thing's in for the long haul. Then you have like Heroes Season 1 or something, where or Bridgerton Season 1, where it didn't really have momentum after its first season. But we'll see. Like, I don't know if Squid Game will stay good after the first season. Now, the thing to remember are Emmy dates. Look at the slide here. That Emmy eligibility dates don't go by calendar year, January to December. The Golden Globes do that, they don't. Their cutoff is late May. So the cycle for everything eligible at the 2024 Emmy Awards ends in spring. That's why House of the Dragon Season 2 won't be eligible for it, even if it airs that July. For the awards show in September, the cutoff is the preceding May. So House of the Dragon Season 2 will be in the 2025 Emmy Awards. And the time frame, the window of opportunity we're looking at is what other things will air from summer of 2024 through spring of 2025. Now, approaching this logically and rationally, not just what do I think will be a big show, but here's some things that won Emmys before, and I looked up news articles on when their expected return dates are and figured out, okay, do these match up or do they overshoot that window? Because shows don't come out annually anymore. Like, even Game of Thrones couldn't keep up an annual pace at this big budget quality. They had to start taking 1.5 to 2 year gaps. Most big shows these days take 1.5 to 2 year gaps, and they start at different times of the year. So I just planned this out, looking at a calendar. Okay, what hits when? Starting with the on the Emmys radar, but not among the dominating ones, and I lump in Morning Show here because it's the last of those half dozen. Case in point, actually, because Morning Show is a really good example of what I'm talking about. Sorry if this is abstract. It makes more sense when I use the first example. The Morning Show comes out every 2 years, pretty consistently. Fall of 2019 was Season 1. Season 2 was fall of 2021. And Season 3 is planned to release this coming fall of 2023. So it stands to reason that with a consistent 2-year turnaround, Season 4 will come fall of 2025. Both of these dates fall outside of the Emmy cycle that House of the Dragon Season 2 will be in. Fall 23, it starts in June of 24. Fall of 25, that's well after the May cutoff. So we don't have to worry about the Morning Show. And in this fashion, I'm just going down the list of all the other things. Other things on the Emmy radar, HBO's own Euphoria. They're starting to film Season 3 this month, and based on their turnaround, it's probably looking at another winter release, like Season 2. So think spring of 24, which can range from January to April, maybe January, because last year it was January. Maybe. That Euphoria seems to have a full 2-year turnaround time between seasons. Now, if something is out spring of 24, that's before the Emmy cutoff. Plus 2 years is spring of 2026. That's way in the future. So just luck of the draw, Euphoria won't compete against it either. And remember that, like, Zendaya was against Emma Darcy, beat Emma Darcy for Best Actress at the Golden Globes this year. That's just because the cycle synced up. That it doesn't do too well at the Emmy Awards, but Zendaya usually wins. When I go by how many nominations you get, not, well, we always get nominated as one thing, but we consistently win it for that one actor. But overall, we don't have to worry about Euphoria. It's beyond the release dates anyway. I don't know. I thought it might not go more seasons, but just this past week they said, no, it's one of our most successful shows. We want it to keep going for many years. We'll see what happens. The dates don't match up anyway. Then you have The White Lotus, which is weird because it was an anthology show, which is a separate category at the Emmys. It doesn't compete. Season 2 got upgraded to a full drama somehow, which when you expand it like that, so that's why they cleared up for, like, Best Supporting Actress at the Critics' Choice Awards, that it's not categorized as a limited series anymore, but it's a full drama. And it's really successful, but looking at it, Season 1 was summer of 2021. Season 2 was fall of 2022, so Unlike the first two on the list here, it's not a 2-year turnaround, it's a turnaround of a year and change, like a year and a quarter or something. So if season 2 is fall of 2022 plus 1 year is fall of 23, this'll probably come back by spring of 2024. Probably. And if they even have a fourth season, a year and a quarter from spring of 2024 would be summer of 2025, again outside the eligibility cutoff date in May of 2025. So we don't have to worry about Morning Show, Euphoria, or The White Lotus. The last of these is sort of just an add-on. Stranger Things' fifth and final season. That this isn't what's going to dominate the Emmys in the future for the next 5-7 year cycle. This is one of the holdovers from the last cycle, and final seasons tend to get a boost. They've had an odd schedule, particularly because of the pandemic. I can't blame them for that. But, the gap between seasons 3 and 4 was 18 months. And they just said they're going to start filming in June of this year. So, plus 1 year, that's June of 2024, plus, 6 months, spring of 2025. No, that's going by production date. It was an 18-month gap between the air date of seasons 3 and 4. Then again, they've often had production delays, so I'm not as certain if Stranger Things will come out within the cutoff by spring of 2025. It probably will. Things usually come up. On the other hand, the thing to consider is that Stranger Things isn't really that big of an Emmys contender. I mean, season 1 was, and they usually do get at least 1 or 2 nominations for Best Drama. They never win. They've never actually won an Emmy award. They're not really on the circuit. The only reason I'm officially putting it on this list with an asterisk. I'm going to list the other things, and at the end, asterisk Stranger Things Season 5, because it's not really done that well at the Emmys since the first season. It's not really that type of show. Not judging it, it's popular. And the only thing I worry about is the sympathy vote that a big final season gets. Which, it won't be a thing in the future, just the final season bump. We'll see what happens. But I'm not too worried about all of these on-the-radar Emmy shows, because they don't sync up anyway. The thing that we will really be competing against are the new freshman crop of shows from just the past year or two. Some of these are coming out now in the same Emmy cycle as House of the Dragon Season 1. Or they're recent enough that these look like, again, maybe they're one-hit wonders, maybe they'll fizzle out in their second season. But I'm going by production dates of assuming that, when are they coming back? There's 4 shows. Starting with the most definite, Yellowjackets Season 3 will definitely compete against House of the Dragon Season 2. Yellowjackets Season 2 is coming out right now, March 2023, and Season 1 came out November of 2021, so that's not a full 2-year turnaround, but about a year and a half turnaround. And they have been officially renewed for a 3rd season, so plus about a year and a half from right now would put Yellowjackets Season 3 squarely in fall of 2024. Squarely within that Emmy cycle, which goes from summer to spring. Fall is in the middle of it. Some of these other shows I'm going, 2 years out, we think something's in spring, but it might get delayed and go over the eligibility cutoff. That's not happening with Yellowjackets. They're a lock, more than anything. Next one, almost as confident about this, Severance Season 3. Severance, which is a real heavy hitter, even in the Golden Globes acceptance speech for House of the Dragon, they said, we thought Severance Season 1 would win. It was amazing for Apple. Severance Season 1 premiered February of 2022, and Season 2 is projected to be late 2023. So, again, not a full 2 years like the other ones, but a year and a half turnaround. Season 2 will come out before the Emmy cycle at House of the Dragon Season 2 is in. But, based on a turnaround of a year and a half from fall of 2023, Season 3 of Severance will very probably have a spring 2025 release, which is within the same Emmy cycle, and it's a lot more of a heavy hitter than Yellowjackets in terms of the ensemble cast, the accessibility. I mean, it's on a bigger channel. I mean, they just promoted up Yellowjackets from Showtime and Showtime Plus, which not a lot of people get, to the full Paramount Plus thing, which is not one of the bigger streamers, but it's better than what they had. And I'm wondering if we'll see a big newbie boom for that show for season 2. A lot of new viewers coming in because season 2 is coming out more prominently on a bigger streaming service. There might be a lot of talk about, and retroactively for season 1, people catching up on it, which is good for them. Thing is, more so than Severance, Yellowjackets has a big, strong female cast. And House of the Dragon is the big female cast for Westeros show as well. It's between Rhaenyra and Alicent. So I'm worried that there's going to be heavy competition for Emma Darcy, for Olivia Cooke they're putting for Best Supporting Actress. We'll see competition from Yellowjackets. More generally for Best Drama, it'll be against Severance. Third out of 4 shows that are new. The Last of Us, which just wrapped up its first season, was really good. I love Craig Mazin. I loved his Chernobyl miniseries, one of the best TV miniseries ever made. His visual style, the adaptation decisions they made were all really good. Based on current news guesses that I've been going through news sites, they think The Last of Us Season 2 is due around late 2024 to early 2025. That there is no way this is coming out much later than that, that pretty much seems to be in the same Emmy cycle as House of the Dragon Season 2. Now the issue is they're both made by HBO, so does HBO hold off on putting that out until later because they don't want their 2 shows competing with each other? Or do they double down and go, well, if one of our HBO shows has a nomination and everything, that increases our chances? I'm of the mind that, well, then your shows are competing with each other and you get a split vote, but that's a debate for the comments section. That's a big question. Do you put your multiple HBO shows out in the same cycle, or it's just when they're done? And then worry about that, because they care about awards more than we do. That might drive some of their decisions. I don't know. Right before I made this, the showrunners did admit that for Season 2, there's only 2 games so far in the Last of Us series. And The Last of Us Part 2, they just said, it is going to take us more than 1 season to adapt that. And you'll notice we're being intentionally vague. They said it will take at least 2 seasons to cover the events of The Last of Us Part 2. So we wouldn't even have to worry about... And again, I'm more worried about Season 2 of both shows competing against each other. For a minute there, I thought, well, will they run out of steam by Season 3 when they don't have a direct video game to adapt? They are working closely with the writers of The Last of Us video game. I mean, that the revelations about how Ellie got immune in the finale are canon to the video games. They said, we've been trying to reveal this in a DLC or something for a while. This is from the video game writer. So it's great, the synergy here, that it's the video game developers working with the studio to make a good adaptation and not just messing things up with... Video games have an even worse track record than fantasy when it comes to live-action adaptations because, well, we need to change things. So that changes what I assume, that at least through Season 3 they will have material to draw upon from previously released games. And I know Part 2 is controversial because it's very dark, a lot of revenge going on, but it would still be good acting from Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, or would still very much be in the running for things that, under Craig Mazin's leadership, they could do pretty well in Season 2. People are going to discuss in the comments, could the first half of The Last of Us Part 2, adapted as Season 2 of this, is that going to be something to compete against House of the Dragon, or are we going to be the divided fan base that everyone was, again, over the video game? Quality-wise, I felt it was going to be it felt like the logical extension of Part 1, and the cycles of revenge and all of that. But given current projections, it takes a year and a half to make this. Last of Us Season 2 is also on the board here. and I think it would pretty much be a big contender. Particularly if The Last of Us Season 1 doesn't win against Succession's final season. Everyone will think Last of Us is due for Season 2. There'll be a big campaign to get Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey nominations if they didn't win for Season 1, because people will say they were robbed because Succession was getting a sympathy vote for a final season. I can only speculate. But the fourth and last of the freshman shows, and these are also the four that are the only serious contenders anymore, Squid Game Season 2. Looking at advanced production schedules, they're filming summer of 2023, stated it'll take 10 months, then post-production. Early 2024 is impossible. They're not going to undershoot the cutoff date. The question is, will they overshoot it if they'll go past spring of 2025? But most of the news articles I've read say they think they're going to put out Squid Game as the big Christmas 2024 release from Netflix, that everyone will be watching this over Christmas break as the thing to marathon. Production is a little longer on it, because whereas like The Last of Us, you could plausibly film a lot of scenes in a field or a rundown neighborhood or something, and it adds some grass in there in a rundown building and go, oh, it's the post-apocalypse. Squid Game has to build all their own sets. Like Severance is an office building, it's a psychological thriller. Yellowjackets is mostly the woods. Squid Game, just all these really elaborate, like a dystopian 1970s movie that it's this crazy video game, crazy reality game that they're all competing in life or death. It takes a long time to make because they have to build everything. Season 1 did very well. I'm not sure if they can capture lightning in the bottle again, because it's different. Like, the lead actress is leaving. I'm not really sure but jury's out on that, depending on how you think of Squid Game. But these still are the four names to look out for that's simply based on production cycle, regardless of, do you think Squid Game Season 2 could match Season 1? Could Severance Seasons 2 and 3 match the level of writing we already saw? Could The Last of Us Part 2 as a TV show, would it run into the same divided fan base that the video game did? I'm not really sure. I'm just saying physically these will be out in the same time period, and they're roughly Emmy-level shows. And really, look at the other stuff. The other stuff overshoots this, doesn't sync up with this window. We don't have to worry about Morning Show or Euphoria. The one asterisk to these four things, it's Yellowjackets, Severance, Last of Us, Squid Game, and number 5 slot, asterisk, maybe Stranger Things Season 5. If it gets delayed again, if it gets a sympathy vote for being the final season, because it hasn't really done that well on the Emmys being up on the board there. That's what we're looking at in terms of competition. Do not expect them to win that much for Season 1. Then again, there must have been a split vote or something, as they won Best Drama at the Golden Globes, but that's just the craziness behind the scenes. And the wins are one thing, but in terms of just raw nominations and what they're putting out there, things are too stacked against them with The Crown and Succession this year. And all the competition, you saw the Globes with Better Call Saul winning everything, that Season 2 is when this will really... It'll be like when Game of Thrones Season 5 finally won an Emmy, and despite being a bad season, it became untouchable as a franchise, that once you win an Emmy, the news media will treat you like you're gold, even if you're not, and the show actually is. I mean, how many news sites have you seen actually talking about House of the Dragon weeks and months after Season 1? They liked it, they walked in expecting it to fail, didn't know what to make of it when it was actually really good. But we haven't seen, like, a lot of articles still pining for and planning Season 2 things, the way you'll see, like, like today, a random article wondering about White Lotus Season 2. That the news media awards industrial complex, as it were, that feedback loop, the buzzworthy Emmy-level shows, those are the only things worth still promoting. Once this thing gets on the board at the Emmys, it'll be the rebirth of what was considered a dead franchise, and might even lead to more spin-offs being sped up through the greenlighting process. This could lead to Dunk and Egg. Again, on the scale of 5 years, I mean, like Dunk and Egg would be a 5 to 10 year show with time skips and even recasting because, well, like the first three novellas out of a planned 12 are pretty self-contained, but he said that the full Dunk and Egg series covers 50 years as he's planned it out and outlined it in World of Ice and Fire. So, like, as an anthology that comes out irregularly every year or two, we could be doing Dunk and Egg for 10 years. I'm thinking like a 6 episode series every 2 years for each novella. That's the problem you want to have. But that's where we stand in terms of Emmy competition because there is a goddamn huge retirement wave. I'll get into this more in the next video, but even in terms of other awards, I covered all the spring season awards, these half dozen to 8 or 9 shows at most dominate everything. What really surprised me was when I looked at the Directors Guild of America awards for year before last, for the last Succession season, season 3, for best episode direction for a specific episode. In that category for drama, there were 5 nominees. All 5 were Succession episodes. In terms of letting in new talent, and yes, it is really top tier stuff, but it's the same 6 shows and everything. There are a few exceptions, but well over half of awards for everything, for Writers Guild, for costuming, for cinematography, it's basically these. And they're all ending soon. Clears the board for House of the Dragon to reclaim the crown, as it were. 2 things I do want to mention moving ahead, though, about how hard it is to predict the future. All I've done in this video is point out there's certain production cycles where we can definitively say, look, Morning Show and Euphoria aren't going to overlap. But yeah, Yellowjackets probably will based on the turnaround time. 2 points. Point 1. It's hard to predict entirely new shows that haven't premiered yet. Like Vince Gilligan announced last September he signed a new deal with Apple to make a new show that's not in the Breaking Bad universe. How good could that be? He's a good creator, but we'll see. I mean, 2 years ago, if someone described someone described Severance to you as it's this psychological thriller at an office, and there's this mystery element, and it's like Philip K. Dick. They're erasing their memories. And like I'm a Philip K. Dick fan, so I like that trope of the erased memories, and it's a mystery. But who could have predicted 3 years ago there's going to be this show Severance that even if you described it to them, it would take over everything? Or Yellowjackets, it's like a female Lord of the Flies in the Canadian wilderness. That the writing is just and acting is just that good. Or Squid Game. Honestly, tell me in the comments, could any of this new crop of shows that Squid Game doesn't sound... None of these sound like standard shows. And, well, if you've heard of Last of Us, the video game, and have actually played it, you know the story is meant to be cinematic. It was kind of half intended to be almost like a drama show just as a video game. But a lot of people would dismiss a video game adaptation out of hand. That, well, it's this zombie show, well, it's The Walking Dead, but that wasn't a real Emmy heavy hitter. But the one nice thing to say about these 4 new competitors is, compared to, Succession or The Crown or Ozark, these are all family dramas, crime dramas, and historical dramas. The new heavy hitters, the new half dozen that are dominating everything, that this plus House of the Dragon, are basically all science fiction and fantasy shows. When we talk about science fiction and fantasy breaking the glass ceiling, that's not considered real drama, or even the video game glass ceiling for The Last of Us, that this is an art form that you can tell drama stories and get awards for. That, like, all of these, Severance, psychological thriller with mind wipes, Last of Us zombies, fungal zombies, Yellowjackets may or may not have a mystical element to it that's part of the mystery, but and plus Squid Game, that these are all sci-fi shows. These are not men yelling in rooms like Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, and Succession. It's a very different playing field now. But still, it's hard for me to predict, like, who could have predicted Severance? Who could have predicted just Squid Game, the new shows that are coming out? Which leads directly into part 2. Well, how can I say there won't be as many new good shows? Point 2 out of 2 here is the boom era of the streaming wars is over. That 2019, launch of Disney Plus for the next 2 years. All these companies making mega mergers to compete with Netflix to launch their own streaming platforms. So every few months you had Disney Plus launching, then Apple TV Plus launching, then Peacock and Paramount. That's over.